They taught you how to pass boards, but not how to keep a patient from quitting care on visit 3. Today's conversation is all about the real education, what you only learn once you're out. Welcome back to Beyond Adjustments. My name is Amin Said, and I'm really looking forward to this conversation, not because we're talking, technique or fancy tools, but because we're talking about the part of chiropractic that nobody prepares you for. What happens when the textbook ends and the real world patients walk in? Well, let's call this one what they don't teach you in Chiro School. Easy name, you won't forget it. That's what we're talking about. And whether you're a brand new doc breaking into the chiropractic scene, you've been in practice for years, or maybe someone like myself who once was a skeptic of chiropractic care, but is now in awe of the results of that care, I promise you'll relate to what comes up in this conversation. Because the truth is, you don't learn how to manage doubt. Right? You don't learn how to explain, neuroplasticity. Is that a thing? To a frustrated mom holding a screaming toddler. I don't care if you're a chiropractor, a plumber, or a tech guru. I won't like this like I'm a tech guru. I wish. But you definitely don't learn how to deal with a patient who's on visit 4 and still isn't better. Right? So I've invited these 2 amazing chiropractors I deeply respect, each with their own lens on care, communication, and clinic growth, to unpack the lessons they had to learn the hard way. Let's meet them. Dr. Jen, I would love for you to introduce yourself to our audience.
Hi, I'm Dr. Jennifer Doerr. I have been practicing for now 18 years. I went to Palmer, Florida, and then I went right afterwards back to New Jersey. I practiced under a chiropractor for quite some time until I opened up my own practice, which is mostly neurologic based because I'm treating babies and moms. I'm Webster certified. I'm certified. I'm also CACCP, which means I'm a kids chiro, but I'm really working on that body to brain balancing, which most chiropractors really do, but it helps us explain the why. And I think that is exactly what you're talking about today.
Thank you so much. Dr. Justin.
Hi there, I'm Dr. Justin, Charlotte, North Carolina. I have an office, Clear Lake Scoliosis Reduction and Chiropractic. I graduated chiropractic school in 2013, but I've been in medicine since 2007, where I graduated with a degree in nuclear medicine and advanced imaging. This plays an integral role in what we do today and how we practice, as we're a structural correction office.
All right, thank you, sir. Okay, all right, so let's warm things up with a quick one. And I'm going to throw it over to you, Dr. Jen. What's one thing you believed in school that now, will make you laugh or chuckle?
That everyone would always come. I think, when we go to Chiro School, everybody's pumped about being a chiropractor and really wants to be there, and everybody's ready to be under care. And almost everybody that's come to practice, except for very few, have already been adjusted or have had families that this is their lineage. So you come back and you're in this health and wellness type model, and everybody pretty much is healthy. And then you come to the real world, and that is not so. Right. And so it's a real shock to know how unwell some people can be and are really looking for some magic pill, which we are an integral part of helping people be overall healthy, but we're not magic. Even though our hands are great, it's a little bit different.
Yeah, I beg to differ on that magic piece, but we could talk about that later. But Dr. Justin, how about yourself?
I have some very similar thoughts. You go through, essentially it's close to 4 years of nonstop chiropractic school. and you go through all this stuff. You go to biochem 1 and 2, you have, tumors 1 and 2, you have all these exams and all this stuff. And you come out thinking like everybody thinks like me. And then you hit the real world and you get smacked in the face like, oh, wait a minute. We're the sickest industrialized nation in the world, right? We take the most medications of everybody in the world. Many people are just happy being stuck in an unhealthy world. And so it's a whole mindset of, okay, here's what we're going to do and here's how we're going to attack this.
Gotcha. So, I mean, I've heard everything from like, I thought I'd fix everyone in 3 visits to I thought patients would always follow the plan if I just explained it well enough, right? It's obviously not reality. All right, let's dig into kind of the first reality check. That moment where what you learned in class didn't quite prepare you for the person in front of you. Can either of you remember kind of a time, or maybe even your first patient, let's go there, who didn't get better? And how did that kind of shape you?
I think honestly, you learn. I think that's the biggest thing. You do all the orthopedic tests that you're taught. I think that definitely I was taught very well in school. We're drilled. And I definitely think that helps a lot on your educated opinion of what's going on and diagnosing. And then you do tools and exercises and you think that you might have everything under control. But again, we're talking about people who are not just linear. We have a lot of multifaceted things going on in our body at one time. And, I had one patient who had a thrombosis, not in his calf, like we're all taught, it was in his glute. And then we found out that, he got taken care of completely fine, everything. And then I did more research to find out that that's where it's more commonly happening than in the calf, but it's nailed into a school that it's in your calf. Even in PT school, because I was working with physical therapists at a multidisciplinary practice at that time. And all of us were scratching our heads. And then we finally sent him for an ultrasound to find out it was never his back, his spine, a nerve, because it was not getting better. And you learn. You look at things a little bit different because we need to learn to get better, to be well educated. I think when you're in practice for a long period of time, you see more and you know more, but you got to always still educate yourself on like the new information, new science. It's both.
Yeah. For me, and I'm going to throw it over to you, Dr. Justin, for your thoughts as well. But for me, again, even though a lot of people think I'm a chiropractor because of all the things I do around chiropractic, literally I have people, hey, where's your office? Yeah, it's right here. I literally on a computer all day. So no, but for me, even in my world, like, there's certain things that I've learned over the years and not in school, but like things that were proven, things that actually worked. And as soon as they break or don't work the way I'm used to, like there's a lot of doubt that gets kind of shoved, right? In my psyche, in my brain, in my thoughts. And I have to like shake it off. Like, no, just because, this is happening doesn't mean this is true. There's always kind of these gray areas that we have to fight through to find, the black and white of it. You know what I mean? Like that's just kind of how life in general is. And I can imagine like maybe for chiropractic care, that being that much harder because you're dealing with human life. You're dealing with somebody who's been struggling with something and it didn't work the way you thought it would. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Anyway, that's my thought on that. Dr. Justin, how about you?
Yeah, that can sometimes happen. I mean, you're dealing with people, you're dealing with the public. Here in America, we are dealing with people from all over, right? We're a melting pot. So it's not just like here we're dealing with just this population. Everybody's considerably different. Genetics are different. What we eat is different. Everything's a little bit different what we do. And, one of the greatest surprises I had was you take all these exams, you take all these boards, you take all this stuff. And at the end of the day, if you're a really good deductionist, that's what we're going at. You can start narrowing down everything and getting DDXs, differential diagnosis, and you can really start going at piece by piece by piece. So my office is heavily into when people can't figure stuff out. That's generally when you come see me, right? So I generally don't see back pain, neck pain. Sorry, go see the other 500 chiropractors in the city, right? Most of my patient population, like last week I had somebody they were 8 hours away, right? And then somebody from the beach side. They are here because nobody else can figure out what's going on. And so in this gets into some of our training that Dr. Jen and I have had of, okay, well, it fits these categories. What can we do in these categories and what can we learn? And obviously, as we continue to grow in maturity in our practice, we can say, okay, this is what we've learned in the past. Here's what might work. Here's probably best practice in this area. And as you're aware, I mean, I spent 10 grand last year in education itself. It doesn't ever end. If you want to be a really good doctor, your education is not going to end.
Right. Yeah, that's good. So you guys, I think actually, Dr. Jen, you said that, they really like drill it in you, like certain things and certain facts and criteria and methods and what have you, whatever the case may be. But do you feel like, have you ever found, or have you ever been in a situation where you're just so used to something or knowing something because you learned it the way you guys did, like in school, what have you? Have you ever had to unlearn that? Like maybe something you were taught in school, and was it hard for you to do that?
I think so. I'd say most of it's pretty clear. I say probably there's a couple things that you have to learn is like interactions with drugs and also just people. I think it's more the social skills. I luckily had like a good background. I had a minor in psychology because my chiropractor told me to do so. And my major was exercise science. So like I really am steeped in like anatomy, physiology, and then the brain of like how people really think. I think really you have to remember that people have like a lot. I'm in New Jersey, I'm in North Jersey, and we're really busy people. We are very high paced people. They have a lot going on, and then they have kids. So they have all the soccer, football, baseball, gymnastics, dance, Girl Scouts, Boy Scouts, and job. And that, and it's like they have to fit you in too. And being realistic a little bit is probably the hardest thing that I had to unlearn. I was like, I want to see you this many times. And sometimes you have to give a little leeway because people have an extreme amount of stress. And if you're adding to their stress, they're not going to hold an adjustment.
Yeah. Some care is better than no care, right?
Yeah. So. I mean, but then I don't want to hear that you're not getting better if I told you I needed to see you so many times to get you feeling better because you've been having a pain for 20 years. Like, yeah. I need some logic and some realism from both ends.
Dr. Justin, after my some care, no care, you went, Can you elaborate on your?
I mean, if you want to go to the gym once a month and say you did a really good job, right? And you only went to the gym once a month, don't waste my time. Like, don't waste your time or your money either. If you want actual changes, we're talking about consistency. And so Dr. Jen's alluding to, the stresses of everyday life. And sometimes we have to remind patients that, if they go down, if mom and dad goes down, family goes down. And so this is a big conversation of mindset. Hey, this isn't a magic pill. It took 20 years to get like this. It's probably not going to go away overnight. And even if your pain goes away overnight, that's not actually necessarily fixing root causes, right? And so I'm looking for a commitment. And in my office, if you're not following through with a commitment, then I'm sending you somewhere else.
Mm-hmm. No, that makes total sense.
I mean, we have contracts, so that we will pull up.
Yeah, and you discuss.
Like, I agree. Yeah,
you discuss like what we had to unlearn. What we had to unlearn in school was, what I did is, and what sounds like Dr. Jen did as well, is I found a mentor that was leading the way in our profession and what I wanted to do and said, teach me what you know. Mm-hmm. And so while I was going through my doctorate, I was also going through my postdoctorate at the same time. And so it was a tough go because chiropractic school is teaching you X. And I know damn well that I'm going to do Y. But I had to take the X tests.
Yeah. No, that makes sense for sure. And running a practice and obviously applying these, methods and this care, there's certain protocols in place. I mean, Dr. Jen, you mentioned even like having contracts, right, with what have you, but that can get messy in real life, right? So if how do you balance that, right? The protocols, right? How do you balance that with real life patients?
It's just, I'm a big person on logic and realism. So like, if I'm telling you I need to see you 2 or 3 times a week right now because of X, Y, Z, and then you're only giving me 1 time a week, first of all, I'm not going to see the success that you want, especially in the period of time that you need. I am treating mostly pregnant women. So we do have a timeline. We have a goal. We have labor and delivery, and we want to have it smooth, and we don't want to have a breech birth. So like most women are coming to me for those reasons. Hopefully they're coming early. I don't like seeing women late. And usually if they are, I'm not giving them like these, like, I'm honest. Yeah, I've seen babies turn at a late term, but it's not usual because there's a lot of underlying things that are causing that pelvis to be misaligned, to have that baby in a wrong position. And some of it, we don't know. It doesn't matter you have an ultrasound or not. We don't know why, everything. And I have to believe that we're going to work on it. And then they need to be focused on what I'm giving them at home for a home exercise program. And if they're not doing it, I can tell.
It's a good point. I've heard that come out of Dr. Justin's mouth with my own kids. So yeah. And we actually saw the results of it in our last visit. So hopefully that kicked them in the rear a little bit, but hopefully. In fact, actually, here's a real life example for you. My son, you know this, Dr. Jen, both my kids have scoliosis. And it's kind of what started me on the journey of this whole, podcast and educating people. But my son, more severe than my daughter, had great progress, right? His first intensive with Dr. Justin. And he gave us home exercises and equipment. And he's like, this is what you do if you want to kind of keep what you got going and you want a little blah, blah, blah. So we're like, okay, great, wonderful. Well, we did that for the first year. And then the second year, not so much. You get tired of doing the same thing over and over again, and he's a kid, he's 16. But we went back and, the lack of the upkeep at home showed, right? Mm-hmm. So we had to do another intensive. And he did see progress from there. So hopefully that woke him up a little bit. But we still have the daily fights, by the way, Dr. Justin, like, do your exercises. It's whatever. You can't break their arm to do it, but even though you want to sometimes, you can't do it. But yeah, that's real life. Like I read a stat too about, well, before I get into that, I had a thought earlier, something sparked in my mind, something that you said, Dr. Jen, is you being real with your patients, like you communicating the right information with them. Like I've talked to chiropractors that are more worried about, sorry to say it this way, they're more worried about the sale and their bottom line than they are to care about that individual. So they'll actually structure a care plan just to fit their schedule so they can bring them in so that the income and the revenue's coming in. I absolutely despise that approach. I'm sorry if I'm, crossing a line here, but the care and the health of the person should come first, right? Mm-hmm. And if you tell them, hey, this is how it should be, and they don't do it, well, that's on them. But you've told them the truth. You've told them what they needed to hear, right? And that stat I was referencing just a second ago, it was like 60%, or I don't remember if it was 60 or 70%, or I don't remember the exact number, but it's somewhere around there, that patients will stick with care beyond the 4th visit, right? So most of what happens after that, I think, is based on trust. It's based on communication. Let's be real, it's based on whether they feel the progress, right? It's not just the textbook technique. It's not just the care plan that fits their schedule. Does that make sense? Like, am I off here?
Yeah. No, you're not. You're not off.
Yeah. So anyway, I could rant on and on about real life examples in my own life, but we're gonna move forward here. So they trained you guys to adjust the C2, but honestly, they didn't train you for the patient who brings in a WebMD printout and says, I think it's my kidneys. but we're gonna move forward, right? Let's talk communication, because I've heard like a lot of chiropractors say knowing what to do is one thing. Getting the patient to understand and stick with it is another, because you have no control over them. And that's a whole different skill set, in my opinion. But what's one communication mistake you made early on, and how did you evolve?
You want me to fill this one?
Yeah.
Go for it.
All right. So early communication right out of school, you are full of all kinds of information. And 99% of it you're not going to use and will never even think about it again. Like I had a board question that was, if you eat a polar bear liver, what are you going to be toxic in? Are you kidding me? Who cares? Who cares? Right? Anyways, it's a fat soluble vitamin. It's not water soluble. Anyway, so I got it correct. But taking a 1,000-foot view and bringing it back down to where everybody can understand. Here are basic concepts. Spine's supposed to look like this. It doesn't look like that. That's bad. People understand that. People understand concepts of this isn't good. Here's where you are. Here's where you're supposed to be. Everybody understands that, right? So the first, I used to come home and talk to my wife, and she'd be like, Justin, I don't understand anything you're saying. Not a clue, right? She's a smart woman. She's got her own doctorate. And she's like, I have no idea what you're saying. And so having to take that, oh my goodness, here's a $250,000 education, and bring it on back down to where every person could understand it, fifth graders could understand it, was probably the most difficult piece for me. I think I've got it locked in pretty good now of where we're at. And, when you get into that compliance, I have another paper I'm writing right now, of intense care. And so, Dr. Jen, this is something a little bit different, but taking, rather than 3 months of care, putting it into 2 weeks and saying, look, we're getting massive changes in 2 weeks. Yes, you need follow-ups, but here's what we can do in 2 weeks, right? And so we can have you come in 2 weeks, take 12 degrees off your scoliosis, or restore your cervical curve, lumbar curve, whatever, sagittal, coronal curves, whatever you want, and make massive changes really quickly and then send them back. So when we get into compliance is a lot easier if I have you for 2 weeks and then I send you back to Dr. Jen and say, go see her once a week, go see her every other week. Now we did massive changes, and now Dr. Jen is a patient for life because she has to go see them to keep this up. So this is really good for everybody's case. But, the original question was, we have to be able to take what we know and take it down into a 3rd grade level, 4th grade level.
So do you ever find yourself, though, simplifying the science so much that it almost waters it down too much? So we'll start there. Did you ever feel like you dumbed it down a little too much in some conversations? Every day. Does that hurt? But does that hurt though? Does that hurt the outcome or help?
No, because if Dr. Jen wants to have a conversation at 1,000-foot view at a doctor level, I'm good, right? Yeah. And I stand right behind what I do. I break it down so easy. I think I do, anyways. I break it down so easy where everybody understands it. Yep, we understand. All right, well, here's where we are, and here's where we're going moving forward. I don't find it that difficult. I don't find chiropractic as difficult as what we make it out to be.
Yeah. I have to agree, especially like treating babies. Like people are like, how do you get people to bring your newborns in? I was like, well, I show them objective findings that there's something misaligned. Their body is not communicating. We do a full exam. It's not the exam that you learn for an adult, because that's not what they are. That's not their nervous system. So we work on a child at that level. We work on their objective. We see what primitive reflexes they do or do not have, and where tightness they have, and how their body, and I show their parents where they should be. And then through care, we're testing and looking at them. And mom's like, wow, yeah, they can feed better. Well, I'm not a lactation specialist, but I worked on their upper cervical spine and their cranial bones, and I did all that. And now they're able to feed, because if I was like this, I actually tell parents, like, do this. All right, try to drink some water. And they can't. So I think you just have to meet people where they are.
I'm going to throw another stat out there. I think it was like patients forget 80% of what they're told in an exam room within minutes. I kind of relate that to if I'm in church and I'm listening to a sermon, I'll literally forget 90% of it unless I take notes. So you don't see patients sitting in an exam room taking notes while you're talking to them. So they literally forget everything within minutes of walking out of your practice. So the ability to explain things clearly, I kind of led you guys down this road because I knew the answer. But the ability to explain things clearly, as you both do, clearly, dumbing it down without dumbing it down too much, and taking out the actual value and what you're trying to explain is probably one of the most underrated clinical skills you've all had to develop that you didn't have when you first, walked out of chiropractic school, because you probably walked out with all this terminology and you're ready to, hit them with all these big words so that they can think you're a really good chiropractor, really good doctor. But then you probably realize really quickly, like, they couldn't care less that I know these, subluxation words and what have you, right? Mm-hmm. It's more of how can I help them? How can I take them to a place where they're feeling better, where they can have a better quality of life? And that's kind of what I'm seeing in the industry and within the conversations and even in my own experiences. Like, I've dealt with quite a few chiropractors, like, seeking care for myself. And that's kind of what I'm seeing. So, all right. So you're over there trying to explain, brainstem signaling pathways, and they're just, wondering if, they're going to go to Orange Theory after their adjustment, or if they can, or what have you. Now, let's talk about the gap between evidence-based care and real life decision-making, right? There's research, there's kind of clinical, what's a good word? Intuition, I guess. And then there's what actually works for the human in front of you. We'll start with you, Dr. Justin. Have you ever had kind of to pivot away from a protocol and then it worked better?
I work in a really weird field. Scoliosis is highly abnormal. It's abnormal biomechanics, right? And the last paper I wrote last month demonstrates 100% of patients have cervical instability here, which changes the biomechanics here. The Euler's buckling, which changes the biomechanics all the way down. I'm relatively confident that's where scoliosis comes from. This is why it's so important. While Dr. Jen and I practice 100% way different, that you go see Dr. Jen and have all your children checked out. Everybody should be checked out. At least I checked my kids in the operating room after a C-section, right? They need to be checked immediately. Why? Because I had seizures most of my life. It wasn't until I met somebody like myself, I haven't had a seizure or taken a medication in over 10 years, right? These can be game-changing and have long-standing effects, not just on the baby today, but what happens in 10 years, 20 years, 30 years. So it's super important that you go see somebody like Dr. Jen for all your kids. At least get them checked out to make sure that they're good. Now, as far as what I do and changing what I do, everything's different. Every scoliosis is different. Everyone's different. Clinical, the clinical management and evidence base is what I do as a whole. I am not a philosophical doctor that says, well, you don't think like me, so that's not going to work, and I don't like you, which is a big division in chiropractic. It's a big division everywhere, but huge in chiropractic. I just don't believe it. Here's what works. Here's what consistently works. Here's what the evidence says. This is what we're going with until I can prove it otherwise. And so I think Dr. Jen's kind of on that category because she's working with babies and moms. There's no way that she's not doing that.
It's true. I would be seeing them all the time.
Yeah.
How about you, Dr. Jen? When it comes to like anything that you might have kind of shifted away from, and maybe not as a whole, maybe just kind of a patient-specific pivot that you made, and then it actually worked better.
Well, okay. So I think I originally started with like a disc practice. So all we did was stop people from going for surgery. So, and then I got pregnant and realized that was not what I was going to do for the rest of my life. I think there's so many facets within chiropractic, and you just got to find what's best for you. But I agree with you need to have some research behind it. I have philosophy. I believe that the body is amazing and the brain has to be connected. But if you don't have research and you have some protocols, I don't believe that like you're going to have constant success where you can see what you're doing and also do it all the time. Like I'm able to teach somebody else how to look at a pelvis in a way that I don't think I was originally taught, because I've taken so many classes about that and the upper cervical spine and cranials that you have to constantly learn. And it's a lot of this. I know it sounds like you use a lot more tools than I do. Do you? Or do you use mostly your hands?
I use a lot of tools in the office.
Yeah. So I've done less tools as I've gotten older, which is funny. I think most people do the opposite.
Well, I think it's because of your patient base also.
Yeah.
And kind of the type of cases that you're seeing. I think with Dr. Justin, correct me if I'm wrong here, Dr. Justin, I think for you, you're dealing with a completely different animal, and you're needing a lot more force, a lot different kind of pulls and tugs and pressure, and that the human hands can't do.
Yeah. And if I saw somebody that was in need for true scoliosis care, like that is not once they're past a certain limit, they do need a specific chiropractor for that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I want to bring up just a couple questions here. Some real life examples I'd like to kind of throw into the conversation. Was there ever kind of a moment in practice when you realized, I don't know, a clinical intuition, mattered more than kind of the textbook algorithm, that's kind of bouncing around in your head? And what did that teach you? Like, can you, either of you, give me a specific patient that rings in your head right now when I say that?
Are you talking about like trusting your gut?
Yeah. Like something where you're like, okay, I know I need to do this, right? This is what the textbook's telling me to do, right? I got to go from A to D, right? But then when you are seeing that patient, you went A, B, and then you're like, no, C is not going to be good for this patient. And you trusted your gut, like you said, right? You had that intuition to say, I'm not going to go this route. I need to jump to D for this particular patient. And can you give a real life example of that? Like knowing that, okay, well, they needed an adjustment, and then, okay, I'll get a little more specific. Dr. Justin, right? You have a certain protocols in your office, right? And I've seen them where you take a patient in, doing the intensive that you offer, the 2-week intensive, and they go from this table to this table, and whatever. And you have this contraption and what I call the electric chair in the back, but we'll talk about that another time. But did you ever take a patient with, obviously scoliosis is different, from patient to patient, but like I said, you have a protocol that you follow, but was there something or a time and a patient where you saw and you're like, no, I'm not going to do this for them because XYZ?
I mean, it happens all the time. Your clinical judgment is so important, right? While there is a textbook to follow, your clinical judgment supersedes that textbook every day. And at the end of the day, I'm practicing under my license while it's kind of the crazy world that I live in. I had a scoliosis patient last week. I released a week early because they went from a 12-degree scoliosis down to, I think it was 3 when I measured it, right? Wow. We didn't complete the full 2 weeks. We took x-rays early. He responded very favorably. I negated some tools, added other tools and home care for him to go home with. He's practically a professional snowboarder, right? So I know he's going to trash his body again. So here's the tools you get to go back and heal yourself again. And so these are clinical judgments is what you're talking about that every doctor has to use every day. If you're not thinking on your feet using your clinical judgments, then you should probably go work at the joint. I mean, they're just robots there. You kind of get what you pay for. Mm-hmm. But good clinicians is what you're talking about, is going to use that clinical judgment and say, no, this is not best for you, right? Mm-hmm. Could we have kept him on for another week and earned a bunch more money? Probably so, but that's not always good for the patient. That was not good for outcomes. And at the end of the day, we all have a conscience. We have to do what's best for our patients. And someday, I don't know what you guys' beliefs are, but someday I'm going to answer for that. Mm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It sounds like It sounds like you'll start with maybe your own textbook game plan, but then like by week 3, you're just kind of playing jazz. I don't know, but it sounds like there that clinician kind of judgment, intuition, experience really does come into play with each patient differently. Like for you, Dr. Jen, you know, if you see a 3-month-old baby this week with, you know, they're not feeding, they're not whatever, and then you see another baby next week, same kind of issues that they're struggling with, I can almost guess that you're not adjusting them the same way.
No.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
And it, you know, that has to do with, it's crazy. Like I'm talking about little kids with comorbidities. Like I treat kids that have CP. They're not getting treated the same way. I have kids who have feeding tubes. We're not treating them the same way. They might have the same objective findings, but their body is not allowing them to do the same, like can't lay on their belly as well or something like that. We got to meet our patients where they're at. Even like I have pregnant women who can't lay on their belly because it's too sore. Well, I'm adjusting you face up and on your sides. I've had patients that have done a lot of therapy on them standing. Like you gotta think, just like Dr. Jess is saying, you gotta think on your feet, because every patient walking into your office is gonna come in with similar, but not exact, and their body's not exact.
Mm-hmm. It's not something you're going to be able to like chat GPT while they're sitting on your table. It's going to come from experience. It's going to come from, yeah. So that, yeah, I get that. So that said, right, let's talk a little kind of self-reflection. Let's look back at your younger self, because I feel like there's, you know, part of my audience are kind of emerging DCs. And I think what you guys have learned over the years in practice is going to really help somebody out there. So I want to kind of close out with some of this, some reflection, kind of looking back now with everything you've seen and learned over the years. What mindset, and we'll start with you, Dr. Justin, what mindset or philosophy changed the most for you? I know you had, and you've shared this with me, like you knew that this is something you weren't going to do, but maybe there was a particular philosophy that you learned that you thought was true, but then it changed. And what was that thing?
The philosophy hasn't changed. I mean, the tough part about that is the people, working with people. That's the biggest change I have, because everybody's so different. My personal philosophy hasn't changed. You know, emerging doctors is what you're talking about. Is, you know, the best advice I have for them is go find somebody that's successful in what you want to do, and go latch onto them and learn everything you can from them. My philosophy hasn't changed. I'm headstrong. I'm going full force right into what I'm doing. I knew going to chiropractic school, I was going to get a postdoctorate. My doctorate was a piece of paper that allowed me to go get my postdoctorate. That's it. And so the philosophy didn't change. I went to a huge philosophical school that I passed their exams and let me be on my way. And I went and found some of the best doctors in the world saying, hey, show me everything you know. I'll pay you. What do you want me to do? I'll come visit you, do whatever is necessary
trash. Yeah.
To be better. Right. Yeah. And it continues, you know, and now I'm teaching next week at one of the symposiums, right? I'm teaching on my recent paper and the application that was happening with that. And, you know, and now I have other people coming to me and saying, well, wait a minute, we were taught what the spine's supposed to look like. You mean you can actually change that? Yes, you can change it and you can put it back to where it's supposed to be. Yes, you can. Just because you're not taught doesn't mean it's not possible. Sit down and let's talk. So now Dr. Jen's probably shoes on the other foot after so many years in practice of here's what we can do. Let's look at these kids. Look at these mamas. Let's have the best pregnancies and the best babies that we can have.
How about you, Dr. Jen? Is there a mindset or philosophy that changed the most for you?
I really think mindset wise was like how to really talk to patients and like really meet them at where they're at. I think that was what really changed how I was practicing. And then I agree, find somebody and something that you want to do within chiropractic care. There is so much out there. You really need to start learning in school and start like focusing on some part. Don't come out and think you're going to treat everybody. Get something that really fills your cup, and then find the people who really do it well and start asking questions. And then also know that running your own practice is hard, so hard. And you need to have somebody that's going to help you with the financial part, the website part.
Yeah.
Don't think you can do it all yourself. Because if you can, I give you a lot of applause, but I also don't think you're sleeping very well.
Oh yeah. Preach that. Absolutely. So, all right. So you're face to face with your younger self. Well, I'm going to throw this question at the both of you. Dr. Jen, we'll start with you. So you're face to face with your younger self, right? They're literally, they just walk down the graduation aisle, right? And you're face to face with younger Dr. Jen. What's that one piece of advice that you're going to give yourself? Like, do or don't do this.
Don't sell yourself short. If you want to go and practice by yourself, don't wait too long. There's somebody who will give you funding. But first, learn a bit. I think I learned too long before I moved on my own. I think actually being a mom was like the thing that actually kicked me in the butt and made me know that I could own my own and multitask everything. But I really think if you believe truly in yourself and do that self-work, you can make it. You just have to grind.
How about you, Dr. Justin? Face to face, younger Dr. Justin walking down the aisle. What do you tell him?
I mean, God's given you a vision. It's you have to take the first step. And so, a few years later, I'm now doing some of those first steps that I should have done years ago. I have a free clinic that we've taken care of people that are in rehab. And so that's super important to me. Take care of the least of these, take care of the widows, take care of these people. Super, super important. Well, successful chiropractors is super important. If you look at all the money, all that stuff, many of those people that I've met are empty inside or have very poor marriages or have a train wreck of a life, right? You need to focus on yourself and what's important to you, and everything will come. It will come.
Yeah, that's good. Thank you both for that. I mean, full transparency, if I were to be telling my younger self anything, I don't even know that I would listen to my older self, because I'd be like, relax. Like, I just watched 6 technique seminars on YouTube. I got this. Like, just don't worry about it. I'm good. Well, anyway, I appreciate you both. Thank you so much. Really, this has been phenomenal.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. So this honestly, again, this was gold. I want to thank again each of you for showing up, not just with opinions, right, but with humility, honesty, hard-earned perspective. To every chiropractor listening, you're not alone in figuring it out on the fly. That moment when the patient doesn't respond or when you second guess your own plan, that's not failure. That's the real curriculum. Keep showing up, keep learning, keep adjusting, and not just your patients, but your process. I'm Amin Said, and this has been Beyond Adjustments. I'll see you next time.